Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. We don't do the touching. And welcome to Monday's massive edition of the dceu Daily. Are you feeling charitable? If so, please smash the subscribe button and the like button. And please do follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. And it all went off on Twitter last night in America. Versus, in the left corner, we have Grace, the Pitbull Randolph. And on the right corner, we have Kathy, the Slugger, Jan. Yes, two females, a director and a blogger went at it, hammer and tong. And we're going to discuss this situation because the exposure of these people for 2 weeks that have been calling Zack Snyder fans toxic and bullies, and worse than that, for pushing for Zack Snyder's true vision of his movie, have been exposed, and it's beautiful, everyone. These people continue to expose themselves, so let's see what happened. So Kathy Yan is the director of Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Grace Randolph is a blogger with her own YouTube channel. Now, Grace Randolph really does stray the line. She will do a video you love, then she'll do a video that makes you totally change your mind about her. She can make you fall in love with her and then really lose your crap about her all in 2 videos. This is what Grace Randolph is. So, it all starts off with a very amicable quote tweet from Kathy Ann. So David Ayer posted this whole thing about reshoots because the tone was too dark, blah-de-blah-de-blah. That was posted the day before. Then Kathy Yan, the director of Birds of Prey, quote tweeted him saying, "So sorry this happened to you. I know the pain." Wow, right? Nothing wrong with that. Although she does kind of lead in with something here that makes you think, is she unhappy with what happened on Birds of Prey? Well, I would be if I was her. But we will go into that a little bit later on. Also, it's actually more to do with another film she made that hasn't had a release date yet. That's another situation that I don't know much about. Anyway, so then Grace Randolph gets involved. I told you guys, massive reshoots, largely to take out D-Pic's storyline and add more action via Chad Stahelski, right? I'm surprised Jan would jump on this bandwagon, though. Birds of Prey very well reviewed by critics, which it shouldn't have been, by the way, and has a very strong fan base that vehemently defends film, as is DCEU. No, it's got a little fan base, but I wouldn't call it a strong fan base anyway. Kathy Yang jumps into this thread and says, "Excuse me, you have no idea what you're talking about. It's fascinating that you would deem to try when you weren't part of the process whatsoever." Excuse me. So where do we go now? Then Grace comes in and says, "Everything I reported is common knowledge. Many insiders, I brought it to the public. I gave your film a good review, and I said, here you have a strong fan base. So logically, there should be no problem here." That's Grace Randolph logic, by the way. And then Kathy comes in, and I thank you for the support, but let's set the record straight. There were never D-Pics. You peddling a paedophilia rumour is not journalism. Peddling any gossip is not journalism. I know. I was one. So she used to be a journalist. So, wow, didn't know that. Anyway. Then, and then she comes back, Kathy Ann, and says, "Meanwhile, articles like the below are written of your scoops. Congratulations on being the scum of journalism." Wow, these are strong. Look, these are strong words, everyone. Very, very strong words. And there's more than that. And Grace keeps on coming back for more because Grace doesn't seem to have any emotional intelligence. But here's the thing. You've got this professional director being extremely unprofessional. She's angry. Now, with all the talk of toxic masculinity, and what's so ironic here, Kathy has bored on and on and on during the marketing of Birds of Prey that her film was about the male gaze and male toxic masculinity, right? And what's more ironic and what exposes this narrative is when Grace has gone up against male directors' films spreading false narratives, they came in directly and politely at her, and it's ended up very well. Example, James Wan. Grace was talking about speech bubbles or whatever she was talking about there. You know, James come back and said, there are no speech bubbles in my universe, blah, blah, blah. And then people started saying, yeah, James Wan slayed Grace Randolph. He comes in, no, I'm not slaying her. I'm not being disrespectful. I have a lot of respect for Grace. I just had to make that point. And Grace was fine with it and he was fine with it. And then the other day with David Ayer, she started saying she didn't want to see the Ayer cut before the Snyder cut. And he goes, listen, I don't care if I see it now, if it's released now or in 5 years. And again, they parted on good terms. So it's actually the male directors being very polite and the opposite of toxic. Meanwhile, this female director really comes in with venom. Now, that's interesting when she has made a film and she's kept on going on and on and on about the male gaze and toxic masculinity. Again, these people continue to expose themselves and it's hilarious. So let's give the facts about this so-called scoop, because I played it to you a couple of weeks ago. How ironic, right? So let's go back and find out what happened. I'm not going to play it to you again. I'm not going to waste time with somebody else's voice. My voice is important right now. I did this channel not just to read the news to you, to give you opinions so you could respond with your opinions. This is how we got the Snyder Cut, by stating truths, right? So Grace Randolph came in with a scoop. In fact, she even started talking about receipts and saying another scooper came in. The other scooper, whose name escapes me right now, actually said, don't get me involved in this, right? But it's interesting because that scooper seemed to have commented at the time, about a year ago, about this and did mention D-Pics. But did Grace get all this from a comment on a Twitter account? Because she was talking about her source. Is that her source? Really, Grace? Anyway, let's get into this. The scoop was this, that in the original cut of the film, that a diamond would have D-Pics in it, right? But not only that, Cassandra Cain, a child, would swallow the diamond with D-Pics in it. And this would be the whole narrative of the film. And this is why Roman would be going after her, because she swallowed the diamond, right? That's it. That was the whole narrative of the film. Now, there is a diamond in this film. And don't forget, Grace spilt this before she even saw the film, before any of us saw this film. So she wouldn't have known what was going on. Now, Grace reiterates what she's saying is the truth. Now, this is interesting because you've just been called out, by a director on Twitter who has millions of followers. You have hundreds of thousands of followers. Maybe she's got a million as well. I don't know. She blocked me. Grace blocked me in 2016 because I believed that her review of David Ayer's Suicide Squad crossed the line. And we argued and she blocked me. Fair enough. I've requested that she unblock me. She's not willing to do that. That's fair enough. But I'm not going to use that in this debate. I actually feel that Grace kept her shit together during all of this. She was very calm and very composed and she never swore. By calling her scum, it's not a very professional thing to do. So Kathy is very, very angry about this whole situation. As I say, there's another issue with another film she's made that's not being released right now, and there's a bit of an issue with it. It's Something Pigs or whatever it is, right? Right, let me reiterate, right? Kathy Yan is a really, really good, talented, skillful, independent film director, right? Now, here's what happened. And this is the truth, and I've said it to you before. Margot Robbie demanded from Walter Hamada that she had creative control of the character of Harley Quinn for one film, and that it be a girl gang movie. She's pretty much reiterated that already. She brought in Kathy Yan, not because of her abilities as a director, because she happened to be an Asian female director. Now, this isn't good for Kathy Yan, because Kathy Yan could have made a good film. We talk about creative freedom and creative control. If Kathy Yan wrote and directed Birds of Prey, I believe Birds of Prey would have been a very, very interesting film. But all what really happened was, during the marketing, she was spewing out Margot Robbie's rhetoric, right? This film is all about Margot Robbie's ego. I love Margot Robbie. She seems like a really nice girl, right? Did Margot Robbie come to Kathy's rescue yesterday? She's on Twitter. She would have seen this going on. Everyone's in lockdown. Everyone's in curfew in America because of the riots. What else was she doing, right? No, she didn't get involved. So Kathy Yan has to deal with this on her own. She has to go out there and fight, and try and slay Grace, right? So basically, Margot Robbie led the narrative of Birds of Prey. Basically, Kathy Yan had to take direction from Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie wanted to be front and centre of this film and have these other characters, the Birds of Prey and Cassandra Cain, standing behind her. In the end, basically, Margot's vision for this film got the production in trouble. Also, she showed it to her good friend and mentor, Quentin Tarantino, the original cut, and he told her he hated it and that it needed to be changed. She was in trouble, right? Test audiences didn't like it, right? So what happened in the end, Walter Hamada said to her, right, there's not enough action in this film. It's boring. It's just full of commentary. That's all it is. There's nothing going on here. You haven't developed the Birds of Prey or anything else. Or Cassandra Cain, right? Cassandra Cain is a really important character in DC Comics, right? But this isn't the Cassandra Cain. Why would you put another Cassandra Cain in it, right? When you can actually set up the awesome, epic, original Cassandra Cain from the graphic novels. It makes no sense. Why wouldn't you develop your Birds of Prey? Why wouldn't you put them in the iconic costumes and make them? If you want to represent women properly, you do this properly from the comics. And those women are strong and independent. So why wouldn't you do that? Because these third wave feminists have got their own idea of strength and independence. And it's dumb and it comes across as unindependent and weak. That's the problem. They don't even understand women, half of them, because most of these women live in a bubble and they don't understand hardworking, independent, real-life women. We know that, right? So this film went along. Margot's narrative, it got itself in trouble and had to get in the director of John Wick to bail them out, right? Now, Scott Mendelsohn, who I can have issues with sometimes, made a great point. That Birds of Prey did make a good profit. It made a little bit more than Mad Max Fury Road, which is deemed as a really, really good film, right? The profit margins, because of the low budget, were really good. But this film should have made so much more money. Not as it is. It's never going to make more money as it is. But if they allowed Kathy Yan to be a director rather than a flag for representation and equality, right? This woman could have made a great movie because she's a great director. But no, that's not what they wanted to do. And this is what the culture war is all about. And so because of the culture war and because they're obsessed, they're ruining the movies. Now, this is the first time the DCEU have actually gone this direction. And I can assure you, they will never go down this direction again. You have got a director in the dirt, verbally throwing, verbal bombs at a blogger, right? She basically calls Grace the scum of the earth. This is not a way a director should be conducting herself. Again, we talk about toxic masculinity. Well, it isn't the male directors getting themselves in the dirt. David F. Sandberg was being told on Twitter to put Henry Cavill in his movie. Obviously, I think David was probably offended by this, but instead of having a go at the fans, right? It's one of his own actors was saying it should be done. John Glover himself, right, who I love, who played Lionel Luthor in Smallville. And instead of getting angry as a joke, he puts in Cavill with a long neck, right, and it turns into a joke because David's got a great sense of humour. Clearly, David doesn't want to tamper with his film again. It would be great to actually see Cavill in it, but if David doesn't feel that's worth it, then I'm with David. There's ways and means of making your point. And Kathy Yan, and people were saying, Kathy Yan has destroyed Grace Randolph's career. She hasn't. This is great for Grace. She can make video on video talking about this. I don't think she'll underline the fact and double down on it. But at the end of the day, Grace Randolph is very certain that what she reported is the truth. But Kathy Yan is denying the whole thing. It's amazing. Who do I believe? Well, I believe Grace Randolph. And I mean, I'm changing my mind again and again. Yesterday, I was all, well, yeah, Kathy, it's about time someone said all of this to Grace. And in a way, it is. Grace has been crossing the line for far too long. And I'm surprised someone hasn't come at her sooner than this. She does cross the line sometimes. And she does conduct herself in a way that isn't right at times. But she's also a good journalist. She also went to film school. And she also has great knowledge of films. And she's very interesting to watch on her videos, and I'll give her that, right? But Grace, this all started because Grace is obsessed with saying, I was right. She's a bit like a child with an ego, right? And this is the problem. But Grace Randolph is a blogger. She doesn't need to have morals, right? She doesn't even need to report the truth. Grace Randolph is there to create controversy. It works. It's what she's been doing all this time. But I genuinely believe she is a lover of film. Sometimes she just gets carried away, and that's a shame. Kathy Yan is a film director. You know, a film director shouldn't be getting down in the dirt with a blogger. And she did. It's embarrassing. And as I say, who's going to touch Kathy Yan for a project again? I don't know if she's going to come out and kind of hold her hands up, but these people don't do that. This will probably go away. So we didn't get much from David Ayer yesterday because as soon as this kicked off, David went extremely quiet, like someone who threw a grenade, right? But let's get something clear. Kathy Yan started all of this with support for David Ayer. She had no interest in support for David Ayer or for Zack Snyder. The truth of the matter is she was trying to put a point across that she wasn't treated very well. Now, she wasn't, right? Birds of Prey isn't Kathy Yan's fault. Margot Robbie wanted what she wanted and she got what she wanted. It was an almighty mess. She formed an all-female production company. The whole thing went to absolute shit and she needed help from her male bosses, from her male mentor, Quentin Tarantino. It's ironic, isn't it, right? I want to see people represented, I do. But in this way, when it ruins my films, the franchise that I support, I don't like it, right? This could have been a great movie. And in the future, I hope we get that cast playing the Birds of Prey in the proper costumes, acting in the proper way, like these characters do, right? That would be awesome, and I would be up for it. But what happened on Twitter last night is an exposure of social justice warrior kind of narrative where they will be calling men toxic, right? And talking about the male gaze. And all along, they can get down in the dirt like they did, and it just exposes their narrative. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. I had a good laugh over this. It was very, very entertaining. And hey, it may continue when they wake up in America later on. But one thing's for sure, Grace isn't going anywhere. Grace hasn't been cancelled, by the way. She hasn't. This is brilliant to a blogger. You know, it doesn't matter how you're being addressed by a creative with over 1 million followers. This is massive. And at the end of the day, I'm sure that anyone will be saying to Kathy, you shouldn't have done this, Kathy. You've embarrassed yourself. You are unprofessional. And I believe that. And I will leave this conversation for there. But the truth of the matter is, Birds of Prey was a mess. Not because of Kathy Yan, and Kathy Yan is upset about that because her reputation hasn't been left intact. While meanwhile, Margot Robbie still gets the biggest offers, right? Continues to be Harley Quinn, and she walks between the cracks, and she doesn't even come out to defend her director. And to me, that's very, very revealing. So yesterday I was talking to Davey Pienaar, right, on Twitter. I like Davey. I love his style. I love his YouTube channel. I've always thought he was a very, very unique Snyder fan, and he's done really well for himself because of that. We were talking about Grace Randolph, and I was saying she's not right as many times as she claims, and he goes, she's right a lot. And I started saying that she was calling Zack sexist after the Amazonian costumes in Justice League. Now, I went back to look at this video, and I actually admitted to him and everyone in that thread that I was wrong. And I think there's nothing wrong with being wrong. She was actually accusing Joss Whedon, and it was Joss Whedon's fault how Wonder Woman and the Amazonians were treated in that film. Anyway, but he was kind of saying that she's right more than she's wrong. And the thing is, right, Grace Randolph can be right, but she can also be wrong. And we've got this big assertion that she claimed that there's going to be a major DCEU canon change in Wonder Woman 1984. Now, this is a great example to see because she stood by that one as well. Now, I've heard rumours there's a cutout there and there's a canon change in it because of something Diana changes to keep, not Chris Pine, but Steve Trevor alive in that film. The cut I saw, the 90-minute cut I saw, had a very different narrative to that, but also went along the same lines in aspects of the tone and what Diana wanted. Anyway, we can't give too much away from that film because that's coming out very soon. Cinemas will be open in time for Wonder Woman 84. Hopefully the writing and all that stopped as well. We shall see. But the point is, this movement, the DCEU Snyderverse, Grace Randolph has got a lot of supporters. And I think sometimes they're defending the indefensible. She's not perfect. She's no angel. She's good at what she does. I think she's talented. As I say, she's one of the few independent female YouTubers talking about entertainment. And she's doing a great job. And she will continue to do a great job. No one's going to destroy her. But to say she's right more often than she's wrong, I'm not too sure about that. But anyway, I always admit when I'm wrong, and I just thought I would mention that. Right. Finally today, we're going to Screen Rant. You know I love reading Screen Rant articles about the DCEU because there's actually a lot more to them than a few lines of words, right? Like Deadline's article about Henry coming back as Superman in cameos, which simply isn't true. I've explained to you that situation already. Anyway, this seems like a really, really good article by Marilyn Pereira. And the title of this article is Justice League, How the Snyder Cut Will Fix Steppenwolf. Again, he does need fixing, and the original vision for Steppenwolf was as awesome as what Zack has done with Darkseid. Anyway, let's give this a read. The Snyder Cut of Justice League will have Steppenwolf as a villain, except drastically different from the one Whedon presented. Zack Snyder's Justice League is set to release on HBO Max in 2021, and along with other major changes made in 2017, in the 2017 movie, the Snyder Cut will fix Steppenwolf, Kieran Hines, in comparison to Joss Whedon's theatrical version of the character. The collective disappointment in Whedon's Justice League led fans to demand the original vision of the film that Snyder had promised before he left the project. The Release the Snyder Cut campaign that went on for almost 2.5 years finally made Warner Bros. Cave. While the exact release date of the movie has not been revealed yet, the estimated budget of 20 to 30 million is evidence that there is a lot of work to be done with respect to reshoots, visual effects, etc. It's not 20 to 30 million. You're looking at 100 million. They're going to do additional photography. It's as simple as this. This is going to become a very high, expansive streaming television show. This is not just about one Snyder Cut. This is about his entire vision. In a high-octane, high-budget, highly funded streaming TV show. And inject it in my veins. I can't wait. Whedon's Justice League was a reaction to the underwhelming performance of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, which was largely considered too dark. Not by me. Not by me. You can never be too dark. Shut the lights, I don't care. Though the film did well at the box office, its 28% score on Rotten Tomatoes was not what Warner Brothers had hoped for. Do you know, it's funny? A site named after a bloody fruit, right? And a multi-trillion-dollar Fortune 500 company were more worried about that than the box office. Of course, they were concerned about the critics and how the critics received it, because if it had a more positive buzz, it could have grossed. Look, a Batman v Superman movie with these two characters in should be grossing about $2.5 billion. There's no question about this. This should have been the biggest film of all time. It deserved to be. It's not like Birds of Prey. This film deserved it and didn't get it. and it didn't get it because Warner Brothers not only cut the movie in the wrong way, not Zack, but Warner Brothers, and cut certain elements out of it. They actually promoted and marketed this film as a popcorn-chomping fight flick between Batman and Superman. And it's a lot more than that. If they marketed it honestly, like Fox did with Logan, then the critics would have given it a bigger thumbs up and the mainstream audience would have as well. They're the facts of the matter. The drastic theatrics and the light humour of Whedon's Justice League left audience and critics disappointed. With the finished product, Justice League delivered an unsatisfactory storyline. Loose subplots like Batman's nightmare scene were left unexplained. Characters like Cyborg, Ray Fisher and The Flash, Ezra Miller, were underdeveloped, and the final product was a tonal pastiche of two vastly different filmmakers. Most importantly, Justice League's villain, Steppenwolf, was underwhelming. Given the fact that Snyder has confirmed that the Snyder Cut will be a whole new film as compared to the 2017 movie, there is much to expect from it. It will not only remove Whedon's content, yes, but will restore much of what was Snyder's original plan for the DCEU. And the storyline that he aimed to establish this will include more information about Steppenwolf, the villain's backstory, yeah, I can't wait for that, his appearance and his connection to the DCEU's most imposing villain, Darkseid. Justice League's 2-hour time constraint mandated by Warner Bros. Once Whedon joined the project led to extensive editing and reshoots, and this meant character backstories and important arcs could be cut. Characters like Cyborg, The Flash and Aquaman Jason Momoa did not have established backstories in comparison to Batman, Ben Affleck and Wonder Woman Gal Gadot. Flash was reduced to a simple comic relief character, and Cyborg, whose character arc Snyder called the heart of the movie, did not live up to that expectation at all. Whedon's characters seem to be hastily patched together, rushing towards a climax without a proper depth in their background, which made them look superficial and one-dimensional on screen. Basically, it was like watching an MCU movie. And actually, that's unfair to the MCU, because you look at Captain America, they really did flesh him out, and Chris Evans did a great job with that. So to be fair, I think that Whedon and Warner Brothers and Sugihara even looked at the MCU in the wrong way, because the MCU have developed their characters. Iron Man had great fleshing out with Robert Downey Jr. and, you know, what Fate did with him as well. So we mustn't forget that. Steppenwolf was no exception. Throughout many of Justice League's Steppenwolf scenes, he spouts video game boss dialogue about ultimate power that comes across as vague and generic. But before the theatrical release, Steppenwolf actor Kieran Hines teased an old-time villain who is still trying to get out of his own enslavement to Darkseid. Not only does this fit with the character's comic book origins, but a backstory that paints Steppenwolf as a reluctant soldier in Darkseid's army would add much more dimension to the character and the film as a whole. Just reading this just pumps me for Zack Snyder's Justice League, doesn't it you? Come on. On Vero, Snyder has teased the changes he would make to Steppenwolf, and if the budget allows for it, the changes in the character as well as the direction of the story could be drastic. While Steppenwolf was always intended to be the primary antagonist of Justice League 2017, Whedon removed various aspects of the character's original design. Warner Brothers thought that Snyder's version of the story as well as the character was too dark and scary. Oh, Mr. Sugihara, you idiot. You would have still had a job, mate. Was too dark and scary. The Steppenwolf at the end of Batman v Superman is dark and angular, almost inviting comparisons to the Xenomorph from Alien. In Whedon's Justice League, the villain's appearance is more human and discernible, facial features and less imposing physique. When fans get to see the Snyder Cut, they will find a much scarier villain, one that has an important connection to the DCU's most important antagonist. I will say this. Yes, everything she's saying about Whedon's Steppenwolf is true, but Kieran Hines' voice performance is still freaking awesome. And basically, that nearly sold that version of the character because his performance is so good. But it didn't sell it because we're not idiots, right? While Darkseid was teased in Batman v Superman, he was nowhere to be seen in Justice League. The history lesson seen in the film was meant to include Darkseid in order to establish him as a looming threat, as a DCEU equivalent of Sauron in the Fellowship of the Ring. This would not only then leave Darkseid in the minds of the audience as the ultimate villain and destroyer, but also add dimension to Steppenwolf's character. Steppenwolf was originally meant to be Darkseid's bidder, like Loki is to Thanos in the Avengers, before Whedon made alterations to the film. In the theatrical version, the only reference to Darkseid the audience got was one random screen from Steppenwolf, which explained neither his dynamic with Darkseid nor his drives. This was puzzling because Darkseid's intended inclusion in the history lesson scene would lay the groundwork for not only his own character, but also the background and motivation for Steppenwolf. Without these factors, Steppenwolf came across as a vaguely driven villain. You know what? It's interesting. Is Steppenwolf under the anti-life equation, or is he doing this of his own free will? It'll be interesting to see that in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Zack's never really spoken about that. Snyder has teased Darkseid's presence in the history lesson scene of Justice League through a tweet by posting an image of young Darkseid on the battlefield. Here, Darkseid appears to be Uxas, that is, Darkseid before he acquired godhood. Darkseid leading the battle in the history lesson as originally planned would have confirmed Steppenwolf's dynamic with him and placed Darkseid as the original threat for the future, opening up different possibilities for the DCEU to explore in future films. Consequently, Steppenwolf will probably not come off as underwhelming as he seems in the film. The Snyder Cut is then clearly rumoured to not only bring back Darkseid but also change the fate and characterisation of Steppenwolf. Correct. Drastically, perhaps, even his death. The audience's excitement about the Snyder Cut has no bounds, and only time will reveal what the original plan for Justice League and all its characters in Snyder's mind has been. Something vast, something compelling, and something, as I've said, inject in both of my veins, all of my veins, and I don't care if I have an overdose. Now, I have a lot of opinions of Joss Whedon. As a young man, big fan. You know, Buffy, Angel, the man was a pioneer. Let's not forget that. Let's not be totally disrespectful here. Avengers was a great movie. Avengers 2, I think Avengers 2, he had more free reign on that film and it didn't really end up well and they removed him from Marvel Studios, unsurprisingly. I don't believe 2017's Justice League is Joss Whedon's fault. Joss Whedon, listen, not completely. Joss Whedon was offered the Batwoman, the Batgirl movie, right? He wanted that desperately. He wanted Wonder Woman originally, years before that. So he took his 30 pieces of silver, which would have been the Batgirl movie. But then they say to him, you've got to take Zack's film, reshoot most of it, only using a couple of his scenes. Oh, by the way, it's still going to be released on the same date, and it has to be under 2 hours, and it has to be light and funny, right? So in the end, you end up with that mess. The only thing I say to you, Joss, is why this continual joke about a male falling on top of a female. You did it in Avengers 2, mate. That's the only thing I would blame you for. So guess what I did yesterday? I very rarely post on Vero. I normally share my videos and that's it. I've just got too many responsibilities on other social platforms. So I did a video asking Zack a question. Now, I always had this theory about Lex Luthor, a.k.a. Jesse Eisenberg's dad in Batman v Superman. Now, even though he kind of hints that his father's dead, it also comes across that maybe he's still alive. Maybe he's out there. Maybe he's in hiding. Maybe he's on the run. Or maybe he's Lex's prisoner somewhere, right? Do you remember that comment to Holly Hunter's character? Maybe if I keep it the same, he'll come back. Then that could be a hint that he's dead and he just wishes he comes back. So I asked Zack, is Lex Luthor Sr. actually alive? Because that's the theory I always had. And if he is alive, Vincent D'Onofrio, who played Kingpin in Daredevil, would play this part brilliantly. I would love that. And who knows? Who knows? He hasn't replied. He can't reply to everything, obviously. But that's what I asked him. Whoa! That was a very passionate, expansive episode of Monday's DCEU Daily. Do you have any questions for me? Comments down below. I'm on Twitter throughout the day. Your day and my day, right? We're all on lockdown still, so there's time for us to talk. So ask me anything you want. Ask my opinions. And if you enjoy what I do, and I come across as okay, and I can come across as a shouty, arrogant SOB, and I get that. But if you do like me, and you have a big following, let your friends know who I am. Because this channel isn't growing, unfortunately. I'm not advertising it. I wouldn't even know where to start to kind of plug in things like that. So if you can help me out, that would be great. Comment down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. See you again soon.